top assassin, hiding as a maid in the Marquis's mansion. Found peace here, kind masters. A sweet young miss. Emperor forced her to marry the cruel Prince Pei. The household crumbled. I stepped up. I'll go in her place. Welcome to my channel. If you like this story, please click to subscribe. There are more wonderful stories waiting for you to listen to. Chapter 1. My words left the three of them speechless. The young lady cried and shook her head. Lu Yun. Don't say such nonsense. You don't understand anything. The Prince of Pingnan holds a grudge against your father for accusing him of abusing his power for personal gain and failing to raise his son properly. Our Marquis's mansion and the Prince of Pingnan's mansion are now enemies. The Prince of Pingnan's heir, Pei Xiao, is a lustful and brutal man. Any concubine in his mansion who shows even a hint of beauty has fallen into his clutches. The Prince of Pingnan's mansion is a pit of fire. How could I push you into it and watch you die? The young lady's words made the Marquis feel deeply guilty. The lady pitied the young lady. Her eyes red with tears as she scolded the Marquis. It's all your fault. The Prince of Pingnan's heir bullies others and takes lives so easily. What does that have to do with you? Now look at what you've done. You've offended the Prince of Pingnan and dragged our daughter into this. The Marquis sighed deeply, unable to respond. I sneered inwardly. How could I not understand? As an outsider, I knew the entire story inside out. The Prince of Pingnan and his wife had no children until they were middle-aged. So they spoiled their son, Pei Xiao, turning him into a spoiled, violent, and lecherous young man. Anyone who disobeyed him would be beaten mercilessly. And almost every month, a servant in the prince's mansion was beaten to death by Pei Xiao. Moreover, he was insatiably lustful, with countless concubines in the mansion. It was said that he took pleasure in torturing women during intercourse, leaving them covered in bruises and wounds. Some even couldn't endure his cruelty and hanged themselves to death. One scandal after another was covered up by the Prince of Pingnan and the princess, leaving others dare not speak out. It wasn't until a month ago, when the Marquis returned home and witnessed Pei Xiao dragging a woman selling bean curd into an alley with his henchmen and brutally raping her to death, that the matter finally came to light. The Marquis, being an upright man, immediately accused the Prince of Pingnan and Pei Xiao in court the next day. The court was in an uproar, and the emperor was furious. He severely reprimanded the Prince of Pingnan, stripped him of his salary for a year, and ordered Pei Xiao to be flogged 50 times as a lesson. The Marquis believed the matter was settled. But yesterday, the emperor suddenly announced an arranged marriage between the Marquis's mansion and the Prince of Pingnan's family, claiming it was to reconcile the two families. Everyone knew this was the Pingnan Wang's revenge, but an imperial decree was an edict from the emperor. Disobeying it was a capital offense, and the Marquis had no choice but to comply, leading to the current predicament. If there's no other way, my daughter will go to the Jingxin nunnery to shave her head and become a nun, spending the rest of her life in the company of ancient Buddhas and lanterns. The young lady stopped her tears, her words already filled with despair and the desire to die. The lady opened her mouth to try to persuade her, but a servant rushed in frantically. Wife of the Marquis, the Prince of Pingnan's eldest son has come to propose marriage. As soon as the servant finished speaking, a group of people burst in. Leading the way was a man dressed in a loose, elegant robe, looking carefree and unconcerned. Though his features were handsome, his eyes betrayed a cold, ruthless gaze. It was none other than Prince Pei Xiao, the heir to the Prince of Pingnan. Greetings, father-in-law. Pei Xiao gave the Marquis a perfunctory bow. Then his lustful eyes began to roam around the room. The young lady shrank back, her face turning pale. She hid behind me in fear, and I silently signaled to the maid beside me to help her into the inner chambers. What are you doing here? The Marquis's expression darkened, and he spoke without any courtesy. Pei Xiao laughed with contempt and arrogance. Of course I came to see my future princess consort. I heard she's fair-skinned, beautiful, and seductive, even more alluring than the top courtesan at the drunken smoke pavilion. I couldn't wait to come and try her out. This was a blatant insult and degradation. You. The Marquis was so enraged that his entire body trembled, pointing at Pei Xiao but unable to speak for a moment. The lady's face turned purple, and she stumbled backward, nearly fainting. I hurried forward to support her, gently patting her back to help her calm down, and comforted her. Mother, don't let this upset you. My voice was soft, but Pei Xiao heard it. He looked me up and down. Your song shuangwen? Pei Xiao's gaze was cold and contemptuous. You're average-looking, with a skinny figure. You're not even as good as the maids at the drunken smoke pavilion. The servants accompanying Pei Xiao looked at me with disgusting, lecherous grins. They mocked me, trying to see humiliation and embarrassment on my face. I didn't care at all. I smiled lightly at Pei Xiao and said, since the crown prince isn't satisfied with me, why not tell the emperor to call off this marriage? Pei Xiao sneered. You sure have a sharp tongue. I didn't back down and retorted. The prince isn't any better. Pei Xiao seemed amused. He leaned in close, looking down at me like a cat toying with a mouse, and whispered in my ear, this prince looks forward to seeing you speak so sharply on your wedding night. I forgot to mention, this prince has a few good brothers who are beggars outside. They're decent enough, but they're covered in pus-filled sores and stink to high heaven. They've never touched a woman in their lives. They say brothers are like limbs, and women are like clothes. On your wedding night, let my good brothers try on this fine garment of yours. It would be a way to repay your father-in-law for his guidance. Pei Xiao burst into laughter, glancing challengingly at the Marquis. Of course, your father-in-law can always call off the engagement, but the price you'll pay might be more than your entire Marquis mansion can bear. After speaking, he turned and left, with the servants following closely behind. The Marquis glared at Pei Xiao's back and cursed angrily. Beast. The lady wiped away her tears and cried bitterly. My poor daughter. Only I trembled all over, filled with excitement. It had been so long since I had killed such a beast. In the end, I took the lady's place in the marriage. The lady had a kind heart and had been good to me over the years. Out of compassion, I couldn't bear to let her go to her death. The Marquis and his wife felt deeply guilty and owed me a debt of gratitude. The Marquis opened the ancestral hall and inscribed my name into the Marquis' family registry, officially recognizing me as the second young lady of the Marquis' mansion. From that day forward, I no longer went by the name Lu Yun but became Song Shuangwen, the second young lady of the Marquis' mansion. The lady gave me all the dowry she had prepared for the young lady over the years. Before I boarded the wedding palanquin, she hugged me and cried, saying I was the Marquis' mansion's savior and the young lady's reborn parents. The Marquis declared before all the wedding guests, Shuangwen is the most beloved daughter of Song Zhao. If anything happens to my daughter, I, Song Zhao, will smash my head against the golden hall to seek justice for Shuangwen. The Marquis' words were meant to support me, but he was also prepared to go all out, as they all believed that my journey was a suicide mission. However, Pei Xiao, who was there to receive the bride, wore a mocking expression, completely disregarding the Marquis' threat, believing it to be nothing more than the Marquis' impotent rage. The Marquis' mansion was giving away a daughter, and the prince's mansion was welcoming a bride. The entire capital was abuzz with excitement, and it was clear that many onlookers were there to watch the spectacle. Inside the bridal chamber, dragon and phoenix red candles burned brightly, and the room was adorned with red silk, symbolizing joy. The sounds of guests celebrating outside echoed constantly. I sat in the bridal chamber, waiting for Pei Xiao to arrive. Miss, are you hungry? I'll get you some pastries to tide you over. Shuangwen spoke tremblingly, clearly nervous. Shuangwen was assigned to me as a bridesmaid by the lady of the house. The lady said Shuangwen had learned some martial arts from the mansion's guards and was assigned to me for protection. If anyone from the prince's mansion bullied me, Shuangwen could come to my aid. However, looking at Shuangwen's innocent and delicate face, I couldn't help but sigh slightly. Wasn't sending such a young girl to the prince's mansion just sending her to her death? Just as I was about to comfort Shuangwen, the door was suddenly kicked open. The loud noise startled Shuangwen, who instinctively shielded me behind her. I frowned and looked toward the door, where I saw Pei Xiao walking in wearing a bright red wedding robe. He looked at me with a mocking expression. Taking one step toward me at a time, leaving Miss Song alone in her room is truly this prince's fault. Shuangwen stepped between us, but Pei Xiao pushed her aside roughly. You worthless servant. You dare to block this prince? You're asking for death. I signaled to Shuangwen with my eyes not to make any rash moves. Pei Xiao walked up to me, reached out, and grabbed my chin fiercely. That old fool Song Zhao dared to accuse us. The Prince of Pingnan, in front of the Emperor. He really wants to die. Doesn't he care about you? His daughter? Isn't he so high and mighty? If the entire capital sees his daughter engaging in lewd acts with two beggars on her wedding night, I wonder how he'll maintain his dignity and still claim that the Pingnan Wangfu doesn't raise its children properly? Two ragged beggars entered at that moment, laughing lewdly as their lustful eyes roamed over me. Pei Xiao gave a cold smile and turned to the two beggars. This woman is yours. The two beggars hurriedly flattered him. Master, rest assured, we have plenty of tricks up our sleeves. Even the most virtuous woman would surrender. Pei Xiao nodded satisfactorily. He turned back and looked at me with pity. In half an hour, I will have all the guests at the wedding banquet witness the spectacle. After tonight, the Song family will lose all face in the capital and have no place to stand. Miss, run away and find your master. Shuangwen panicked and blocked me. Looking anxious, Pei Xiao gave a disgusted order to the door, and two guards came in and dragged Shuangwen away. Pei Xiao followed slowly, closing the door and locking it. The bridal chamber fell silent. Two beggars looked at me eagerly. Little lady, don't struggle. The more you struggle, the more excited we brothers will get. I smiled and said, you two seem pretty experienced. One of the beggars sneered. Of course we are. We've had our share of noble ladies like you. The young master is kind-hearted. Whenever he encounters so-called chaste and virtuous women like you, he lets us brothers have a taste. He just wants to see how you women can maintain your high and mighty act. Another beggar chimed in. The prince is right. You women were born to be slept with by men, even noble ladies like you. Didn't those other ladies before you dare to make a scene? I laughed dangerously. Aren't you afraid of dying? The two looked at me with disdainful smiles. With the prince as our backer, who dares to kill us? I leaped into the air, as fast as lightning, wrapping my legs around one of the beggars' necks and exerting all my strength with my calves. With a crack, the beggar's terrified screams were cut off in his throat, his head drooping lifelessly. He was dead, and I had snapped his neck in an instant. The other beggar stared at me in disbelief. You can't kill me. You can't kill me. The prince is behind me. I narrowed my eyes, quickly pulled out the golden hairpin from my hair, and thrust it into his temple with all my strength. The other beggar's body collapsed lifelessly to the ground. In just 3 breaths, I had disposed of these two vermin. Outside the window, the sounds of revelry continued. I looked down at the 2 corpses on the ground, my expression growing cold. Eliminating Pei Xiao was urgent, but he was after all the heir to the Prince of Pingnan, a member of the imperial family. He must have secret guards protecting him. With my skills, assassinating him might succeed, but the risk was enormous. Even if I managed to escape, I would face the Prince of Pingnan's relentless pursuit, making it not worth the effort. Moreover, it would also endanger the Marquis's mansion, as I am currently the daughter of the Marquis. Therefore, The best solution was to eliminate the Prince of Pingnan as well, but through someone else's hands. This method was the safest, but also the most difficult, requiring careful planning before acting. As I pondered my next move, I quickly disposed of the bodies of the two beggars in front of me. I pushed open the window and, under the cover of night, dragged the bodies to the lotus pond in the backyard. I tied stones to each body and sank them into the pond. After disposing of the bodies, I was curious to see how Pei Xiao would handle the situation and decided to go watch the show. I quickly made my way to the front courtyard. At that moment, the wedding banquet in the front courtyard was nearing its end. Everyone had gathered around Pei Xiao, taking turns to toast him and flatter him. Pei Xiao's face was flushed with excitement, basking in the adulation, thoroughly enjoying the attention. He occasionally glanced toward the direction of the bridal chamber, his eyes brimming with excitement. It seemed like the time was right. I saw Pei Xiao give a subtle signal to a maid who had been waiting by the door. The maid nodded slightly, then turned toward the crowd of guests and screamed in panic. "Something's wrong! There's a thief in the princess's room!" Everyone was startled and turned to look. The maid stumbled into the room, her face filled with anxiety and worry. "Prince." I saw two men rush into the princess's room, and there were strange noises coming from inside. They must be kidnappers holding the princess hostage. "You must go and see what's happening." Though seemingly concerned, her words subtly conveyed a message to everyone. I was having an affair with someone on my wedding night. "You slut! How dare you sleep with another man? I'll have you drowned in a pig's cage." Pei Xiao smashed the wine cup in his hand onto the ground, effectively condemning me. After speaking, he strode toward the bridal chamber. The other guests followed curiously, their eyes brimming with anticipation for the spectacle. I curled my lips. What a clumsy scheme. The guests could see through it, but they clearly didn't care. I quickly returned to the room and sat down by the bed. From afar, I heard Pei Xiao's furious voice, "Song Shuiwei. You promiscuous woman. Today, this prince will kill you. Tomorrow, this prince will go to the imperial court to accuse your Yongyang Marquis mansion of failing to discipline your daughter properly. I will ensure that the Yongyang Marquis mansion has no place in the capital city." Pei Xiao's voice was filled with unabashed triumph. As if he already knew he had the upper hand, he began to speak his mind without restraint. The door was kicked open, and Pei Xiao entered swiftly, sword in hand, his face brimming with excitement. Behind him followed the guests who had come to watch the spectacle, all craning their necks to peek inside. I rose slowly, looked at the crowd entering the room, and spoke with a smile. "On this joyous day, my husband enters wielding a sword, shouting threats of violence. What is he doing?" Seeing that I was the only one there, Pei Xiao's smug expression froze on his face. He looked around, not seeing the scene he had expected. "This can't be." He reluctantly looked around again, but couldn't find a second person. He turned and glared at me. "Song Shuiwei, where did you hide him?" I smiled slightly. "Has my husband had too much to drink? There's no one else in this room. The Pingnan Wangfu is heavily guarded. If there were any strangers, they would have been killed as assassins. Could my husband have believed some rumor that I'm having an affair with someone else? Having an affair on our wedding night? Only a fool would believe that." I teased Pei Xiao as his face grew darker and darker. In just a few words, I exposed how poorly planned and ridiculous Pei Xiao's scheme to catch me in the act was. Some people in the crowd couldn't help but laugh, clearly realizing that today's performance was all Pei Xiao's doing, and that he had ended up shooting himself in the foot. Pei Xiao was so angry his face turned red, as if he was about to attack me at any moment. Just then, a stern voice rang out, "It's all a misunderstanding." Upon hearing this voice, Pei Xiao trembled visibly, looking terrified. I looked over curiously and saw a middle-aged man with a stern, square face walking in. Behind him was a beautiful woman, who looked worriedly at Pei Xiao but dared not approach due to the man's imposing presence. Everyone hurriedly bowed to the two of them. I immediately recognized them as the Prince of Pingnan and the Princess of Pingnan. The Prince of Pingnan stepped forward and slapped Pei Xiao hard across the face, leaving blood on his lips. However, Pei Xiao kept his head down, daring not to show the slightest sign of resentment. The Pingnan princess, heartbroken, shielded Pei Xiao behind her. "Your Highness, what are you doing?" The Pingnan king ignored the Pingnan princess and instead bowed to the guests. "My son has had too much to drink. I apologize on his behalf to all of you. Today is a joyous occasion for the Pingnan Wang mansion. I do not wish for any gossip to spread. I am a man who remembers favors and avenges wrongs. Those who grant me face are my friends. Those who speak ill behind my back will be my enemies forever." The Prince of Pingnan was the younger brother of the current emperor, so the guests naturally wouldn't dare to defy him. One by one, they patted their chests and swore they wouldn't say another word. With the Prince of Pingnan present, everyone sensed the situation and slowly withdrew from the courtyard to the front hall. I furrowed my brows slightly. This Prince of Pingnan is indeed quite capable. I had intended to provoke Pei Xiao into causing a scene today, hoping to bring dishonor upon the Prince of Pingnan's mansion. Yet, with just a few words, the Prince of Pingnan had defused the situation. After everyone had left, the Prince of Pingnan gave me a piercing glance. His eyes filled with warning and intent to kill. "The Yongyang Marquis does have a good daughter. But once you enter my Pingnan Wang mansion, you must abandon your bad habits. I tolerate no sand in my eyes. If you cause trouble again, don't blame me for being ruthless. Don't count on Song Zhao to back you up. That old fool doesn't know when to back down. He'll soon reap what he sows." I looked at the Prince of Pingnan, neither confirming nor denying his words. But his words made me alert. Was the Prince of Pingnan planning something against the Marquis? The Prince of Pingnan turned to look at Pei Xiao. "You should also behave yourself. You're so impatient and can't even handle such a small matter properly." Pei Xiao dared not argue and nodded reluctantly. Seeing that Pei Xiao was obedient, Prince Pingnan turned away satisfied. Princess Pingnan comforted Pei Xiao with a few kind words and instructed the maids to bring medicine to treat his injuries. After tending to the marks on Pei Xiao's face, she glared at me with hatred. "You've only been married for a short time and already causing trouble. You truly lack proper manners. How shameful for the Yongyang Marquis mansion, a noble household, to raise such a daughter who disobeys her husband, speaks sharply, and acts arrogantly and tyrannically. She truly has no manners. Huang Lao, starting tomorrow, teach the princess consort proper etiquette. You're an old servant of the prince's mansion, there's no need to hold back. If anyone slacks off, just take action yourself." An emaciated old maid stepped out of the crowd. "The servant obeys your orders." The Princess of Pingnan pulled Pei Xiao away. Huang Laonyang looked at me with a haughty expression. "Princess consort, rest well. Tomorrow, this servant will come and teach you some manners, to rid you of your petty ways." With that, she left with her people. The farce came to an abrupt end. After everyone had left, I called Sueyun inside. She was clearly still shaken, trembling as she helped me change out of my wedding attire. I then told her to go rest. Once it was late at night and I was certain Pei Xiao wouldn't come, I put on my night attire and slipped out the door. Today's wedding banquet would see many guests drunk beyond measure, presenting the perfect opportunity for me to search the Pingnan Wangfu. Before arriving at the Pingnan Wangfu, I had already studied its floor plan, so I was well acquainted with the layout of the entire estate. My first destination was the courtyard of the Pingnan Wang and his wife. Under the cover of night and the trees, I approached the window of their bedroom and listened quietly to their conversation inside. "Your Highness, that Song Shuangwen was too bold today. How could you allow the emperor to issue a decree arranging the marriage, forcing Xiao to marry such a harlot?" The Song family has disgraced the Pingnan Wangfu multiple times. We cannot let them off the hook. The words of the Pingnan Wang's wife made me furrow my brows slightly. Then the voice of the Pingnan Wang also came out. His tone cold and bloodthirsty. That old dog Song Zhao dared to accuse this prince. He should prepare for his death. This prince requested the marriage as an excuse to reconcile with Song Zhao. My elder brother thought I had reformed. But it was also to lull Song Zhao into a false sense of security. In reality, I have already secretly instructed some officials to gather evidence against Song Zhao. When the time comes, we will impeach him together and ensure that the entire Song family is executed. The joyful voice of the Princess of Pingnan rang out, "Your Highness is truly wise and mighty." The Prince of Pingnan spoke again, "Keep a close eye on Shower. He must behave himself during this time and dispose of all the women in the secret room to avoid giving others a handle to use against him, which would only cause more trouble." I raised an eyebrow. As the secret room and the women caught my attention. Shower is acting this way because he is troubled. After all, his physical defect is something we, as his parents, have failed him on. He was just venting his emotions. He didn't commit any major offenses. Why is your highness being so harsh on him? The princess of Pingnan's voice trembled with tears. Her words filled with grievance, which prompted the prince of Pingnan to comfort her. I listened for a while longer but heard nothing of use. So I left the prince of Pingnan's courtyard. I leaped several times and arrived at Pei Zhao's courtyard. The secret room mentioned by Prince Pingnan caught my attention. As a professional assassin, I had seen countless secret rooms over the years. Generally, secret rooms are hidden in bedrooms or study rooms. If a woman is hidden in a secret room, it's unlikely to be in the study room, it must be in the bedroom. I made my way to Pei Zhao's bedroom and, taking advantage of the guard's inattention, entered the room through the window. Coincidentally, as soon as I entered the bedroom, I saw that the shelf in front of me had been moved, revealing a dark door on the wall where the shelf had been. Someone had clearly entered the secret room, and that person must have been Pei Zhao. I darted into the secret room, and a strong smell of blood hit my nose, causing me to hold my breath involuntarily. Using the faint light from the torches on the wall, I crept forward, staying close to the wall. I faintly heard Pei Zhao's angry shouts. When I carefully rounded a corner, I finally got a clear view of the secret room. Even I, a seasoned assassin who had killed countless people, couldn't help but gasp in horror. I clenched my fists tightly, suppressing the urge to rush forward and snap Pei Zhao's neck. The dark, cramped secret room was filled with torture devices, cold, blood-stained iron hooks, red-hot iron branding irons, and walls covered with sharp needles of various sizes. It resembled a torture chamber. In the center of the chamber, more than 10 naked young women were bound. Some were suspended by ropes, others were tied to pillars, and some were being held down on a wooden horse by several servants. The women on the wooden horse were emitting piercing screams, their bodies convulsing in agony, and streams of bright red blood flowed from their bodies. Pei Zhao stood in front of the wooden horses, watching everything with excitement. His face twisted into a satisfied grin. I watched coldly, not wanting to alert them, although the women's clothes had been torn to shreds. The fabric was clearly high-quality silk. Though their hairpins were few, each one was a fine piece, indicating that these women were not maidservants of the Prince of Pingnan's mansion. I recalled what the two beggars had mentioned earlier, that Pei Zhao had forced them to humiliate several noblewomen. The dozen or so young women before me were likely the daughters of prominent families in the capital. I felt a deep sorrow, the sorrow of being a woman, having lived in the capital for several years. I had never heard of any noblewomen going missing, which meant their families had not reported it to the authorities or even searched for them. It goes without saying that those families dare not make a fuss, fearing their reputations will be ruined and their families dragged into disgrace. Therefore, they can only sacrifice these innocent daughters. and even secretly think that these missing daughters would be better off dead. They have never considered that the one at fault is the person who abducted their daughters. Their silence only makes that person more arrogant and triumphant. At that moment, 2 servants untied 2 of the women who were bound and brought them to Pei Xiao. Pei Xiao laughed cruelly and roughly embraced the 2 women. The 2 women were like living corpses, numbly serving him. Pei Xiao looked smug and enjoyed himself. I looked at Pei Xiao's lower body and finally understood what the Princess of Pingnan had meant by physical defect. Pei Xiao was a eunuch, which explained his violent temper. His promiscuity was merely a mask, a cover-up. He tortured and humiliated women because he was insecure, while the Prince of Pingnan and the Princess of Pingnan indulged him out of guilt. I quietly slipped out of the secret room, resisting the urge to rush in and rescue the women. To put it cruelly, even if I could have saved these women without anyone noticing today, they would have returned home in this state, and their families would not have stood up for them. Instead, they would have been forced to take their own lives without anyone knowing. A white silk ribbon, a bottle of poison, or a fabricated serious illness. I am powerless. All I can do now is eliminate Pei Xiao and the Pingnan Wang mansion. And time is of the essence. The Pingnan Wang is already preparing to deal with the Marquis, so there is no time to waste. I must act swiftly to deal with the Pingnan Wang mansion. What I saw today has given me a plan in my heart. Therefore, I will begin implementing the plan tomorrow. The next morning, just as Suiyun had finished helping me with my ablutions, the door was suddenly pushed open. Huang Laonyang, accompanied by several fierce-looking old women, burst into the room. They did not bow to me but merely glanced at me indifferently. Princess consort, we have been sent by the princess to teach you proper etiquette. The first rule is to pay respects. Our Pingnan prince's mansion is a royal family, and we place the utmost importance on the rules of etiquette. There can be no mistakes. Now, please perform the kneeling and bowing ceremony before me. Huang Laonyang took the ruler handed to her by one of the old maids and looked at me calmly. She was certain I wouldn't dare disobey. I smiled lightly and looked at her calmly. This was her way of intimidating me, but I wasn't someone who would back down. Huang Laonyang's brows furrowed, and her tone grew harsher. Are you defying the princess's orders? On your first day as a new bride, you dare to disrespect your elder. If this gets out, not only will your reputation be ruined, but the Song family of the Yongyang Marquis mansion will also be disgraced. Suiyun grew anxious beside me, but I continued to smile, which enraged Huang Laonyang. She pointed at me angrily and shouted, "Someone, bring her to the ancestral hall to kneel and confess her mistake." I reached out and grabbed Huang Laonyang's finger, twisting it forcefully until I heard a loud crack. Her finger was snapped clean off. Huang Laonyang's piercing screams echoed through the room, sending everyone into a panic. I pulled Suiyun away and left. Behind us, Huang Laonyang's threatening voice echoed. "You wretch! How dare you treat me this way? I'll make sure the crown prince gives you a taste of your own medicine. As long as I'm alive, I'll make sure you never become a proper crown princess. If you don't believe me, just wait and see." I ignored her and left the mansion, hailing a carriage and staying at an inn. Today's incident was just a pretext. Leaving the Pingnan prince's mansion was the only way I could truly make my move. The news of me injuring the matron sent by the princess to teach me proper etiquette and my unauthorized exit from the mansion quickly spread throughout the capital. Pei Xiao released a statement, demanding that I kneel at the mansion's gate for 3 hours to admit my mistake, or else he would divorce me. The entire capital was watching the spectacle, eagerly awaiting my humiliation. The Marquis and his wife personally came to the inn to take me back, furious and promising to settle the matter for me. I refused their kindness, telling them I would return to the Marquis mansion on my own in 3 days. Seeing my resolute attitude, they had no choice but to agree. Later, the young lady came to see me secretly. She cried bitterly, saying I had been wronged, and even suggested that we could divorce, as the Marquis's mansion would support me, and I could find a better husband. I felt a little moved. The Marquis, his wife, and the young lady were indeed kind-hearted people, so I couldn't let the Prince of Pingnan's mansion off the hook. After midnight, I put on my night clothes, took the bag I had prepared earlier, and slipped out of the inn under the cover of darkness. I entered the Prince of Pingnan's mansion with ease and made my way to Pei Zhao's secret room. The secret room was empty today, and I faintly heard the women crying softly. I ignored them, hid the package in the secret room, and then left. By midnight, the night guards had relaxed their vigilance, and I quietly slipped into the Ping Nanwang study. The Ping Nanwang study contained only some official documents and a few books. There were no valuable items. I pulled out several letters from my robe, slipped them into the books, and quickly left. After leaving the Ping Nanwang's mansion, I made my way to the Changping princess's mansion. Princess Changping was the emperor's most beloved daughter. She had married 3 years ago, but her husband had been killed in a raid against bandits, leaving the emperor filled with guilt and regret. Even the current crown prince could not compare to Princess Changping in the emperor's heart. In recent years, Princess Changping had secluded herself from the world, and many people in the capital had forgotten about her. My target today was Princess Changping, and she was the only one who could cause a stir and not fear the Prince of Pingnan. The princess's mansion was large, but the guards were ordinary, and I easily made my way to the outer chambers of her bedchamber. I quietly pushed open the window, climbed inside, and rushed toward the bed. I didn't bother to lower my voice. I was going for the exposure. Sure enough, the princess woke up suddenly. She was startled for only a moment before shouting, "Someone! There's an assassin!" I slashed the princess's neck with my knife, and she fainted instantly. At that moment, I heard hurried footsteps outside the window. I knew the guards were rushing toward the sleeping quarters. I picked up the princess and escaped through the window. The guards gave chase. I moved stealthily and soon arrived at the Pingnan prince's mansion. Fearing the guards might lose my trail, I tore off a piece of the princess's nightgown and left it at the entrance of the mansion before leaping inside. I entered the secret room with ease. The bound women there were startled to see me in my night attire. Upon seeing the princess on my back, they all looked at me with sympathy, clearly mistaking me for one of Pei Zhao's henchmen. I bound the princess and then growled softly, lowering my voice, "Don't make a sound. If you ruin the prince's plans, you'll all suffer the consequences." After speaking, I turned to leave, but as I stood up, I quickly drew out a silver needle and pricked the princess. She winced in pain, clearly about to wake up. Upon exiting the secret room, chaos had already erupted outside. The guards of the princess's mansion were confronting the guards of the prince's mansion. Prince Pingnan hurried to the front courtyard. Upon hearing about the princess being kidnapped, he furrowed his brows. I knew he was suspicious, and I didn't want the princess's guards to search the palace, as the prince's mansion always had some unsavory items. So I added fuel to the fire, standing at the entrance of the secret room and screaming desperately toward the outside, "Help! Help!" The sound echoed throughout the entire palace, and I quickly retreated. The front courtyard was in chaos. The guards of the princess's mansion feared for her safety and rushed in, risking their lives. I knew the rest was out of my hands, so I quickly left the Ping Nanwang mansion and returned to the inn. The next morning, the streets were bustling with people in a hurry. Suayin rushed over to tell me that everyone from the Pingnan prince's mansion had been arrested and thrown into prison. It said they kidnapped the princess, secretly kept the imperial robe, and plotted rebellion. They also found several secret letters to the Western Liang Kingdom in the Pingnan prince's study. The emperor was furious and ordered a thorough investigation. "Miss, what should we do? Will we be implicated?" Suayun was very worried. I reassured Suayun, saying that since no one had come to arrest us yet, it meant we wouldn't be implicated in this matter. After all, I had only been married into the prince's mansion for 2 days, and it was an arranged marriage by the emperor. How could these matters have anything to do with me? Who would dare to provoke trouble by arresting me? If they arrest me, it would be like reopening the emperor's wound, since he was the one who made the mistake of granting the marriage. I waited quietly for the situation to unfold, and soon various reports began to circulate. Among the women imprisoned by Pei Xiao were the daughters of wealthy merchants and high-ranking officials. Since the matter had escalated, those officials could no longer cover it up and had to submit a petition to the emperor demanding severe punishment for the Pingnan prince's mansion. Since the scandal couldn't be covered up, they must have weighed the pros and cons. By submitting a petition accusing the Pingnan Wangfu, they could gain a reputation for daring to stand up to power. Princess Changping took the lead. She had witnessed the tragic state of those women and brought them to kneel at the palace gates, pleading for severe punishment of the Pingnan Wangfu. This sparked widespread public discussion. However, this was not a major issue for the emperor. The most serious matter was that the guards from the princess's mansion discovered a secret room containing an imperial robe and a privately carved jade seal while rescuing the princess. This was what truly alarmed the emperor. The emperor ordered a search of the Pingnan Wangfu, and indeed found some letters implicating the Pingnan Wang in collusion with foreign enemies in his study. This finally enraged the emperor, who ordered the arrest of everyone in the Prince of Pingnan's mansion and ordered the imperial clan court to conduct a thorough investigation. On the 3rd day, I arrived at the gate of the imperial prison and gave the jailer some money, allowing me to enter the prison to visit the prisoners. Following the jailer to the cell where the Prince of Pingnan and his family were imprisoned, I looked at the 3 people inside. Pei Xiao was huddled in a corner, head down, not saying a word. The princess was leaning against the wall, while the Prince of Pingnan sat upright in the middle, looking calm and composed. Upon hearing my footsteps, all 3 turned to look at me. The Prince of Pingnan glanced at me before closing his eyes again to rest. Pei Xiao, upon seeing me, immediately began cursing at me. "You worthless woman! Where have you been these past few days?" The princess also spoke coldly. "Why haven't you come to see your husband? He hasn't been feeling well these past few days. Come and give him a massage." I ignored the 2 of them and turned to look at Prince Pingnan instead. "Your Highness, you seem so calm. Are you confident you can get out?" Prince Pingnan frowned, looking as if he didn't want to bother with me. Pei Xiao pointed at me angrily and shouted, "You blind dog! My father is the Prince of Pingnan, and he's the emperor's own brother. The emperor naturally trusts my father. Look, no one dares to torture us harshly. That alone proves this matter isn't serious." Pei Xiao seemed inexplicably confident. I chuckled. No wonder they were so arrogant. I looked at the Prince of Pingnan and said, "Your Highness, do you think this is a frame-up with obvious flaws? The people under your command will surely find evidence to save you, no matter what it takes. After all, they can only rely on you in the court. Your rise and fall are intertwined." The Prince of Pingnan finally raised his eyelids slightly and glanced at me with disdain. "You do have some insight." Pei Xiao also sneered. "Those dogs are only good for that." I smiled lightly and spoke calmly. "Your Highness, the Emperor has issued an edict. Tomorrow at noon, the entire Pingnan Prince's mansion will be executed." A single stone sent ripples across a pond. The 3 of them stared at me in disbelief. "Impossible." The Prince of Pingnan was the first to react, shouting angrily at me. The princess rushed over to attack me. "You wretch! You're spreading lies. Who sent you here?" I kicked her directly, and she screamed, flying backward. Pei Xiao also wanted to rush over and attack me, but upon seeing this, he froze in place, dared not approach. I sneered contemptuously, looking at the Prince of Pingnan. Today in the imperial court, All the officials pleaded with the emperor to severely punish the prince. The imperial clan court has also submitted evidence of the prince's factionalism and corruption, as well as evidence of Pei Zhao's reckless disregard for human life. The emperor's words are final. Tomorrow, everyone in the Prince of Pingnan's mansion will be executed. The Prince of Pingnan's face turned slightly pale, and he instinctively tried to object. But I spoke again. I forgot to mention that after the prince was imprisoned, I sent letters to all his subordinates in the name of the crown prince. The letters harshly condemned them as traitors, urging them to do everything in their power to rescue the prince. Otherwise, I threatened to expose their crimes and die together with them. Upon hearing this, the Prince of Pingnan turned as white as paper. If those retainers had ever considered rescuing the prince before, they would certainly now wish for both the prince and Pei Zhao to die in prison. After all, even if they knew they were serving the prince like dogs, being insulted so viciously would make them angry. Moreover, I also said that if they did not rescue the prince, I would expose their weaknesses and bring about their downfall. This made them resolve to let the Prince of Pingnan die, as no one wants to have someone holding their weaknesses over them, ready to use them against them at any moment. The emperor may have doubts about the Prince of Pingnan's rebellion, but so what? The emperor's heart is unpredictable. Serving the emperor is like walking on thin ice. As an emperor, one is most suspicious, especially since the Prince of Pingnan is also royal. Even if there is just a hint of suspicion, the emperor will extinguish it completely. Pei Zhao cursed angrily. You vile woman. You're truly malicious. I turned to look at Pei Zhao. I forgot to tell you. I've prepared a gift for you. Before I could finish speaking, 2 guards stepped forward and dragged Pei Zhao into the adjacent cell. Pei Zhao looked panicked. But before he could ask, several beggars walked in. Pei Zhao clearly thought of something. His face turned pale as he looked at me. I smiled faintly. These beggars are my friends. They've never enjoyed a woman in their lives. But I'm a kind-hearted person. I think men and women are basically the same. Enjoying a man is just as good. The beggars bowed to me in gratitude, then surrounded Pei Zhao. The Princess of Pingnan was lying on the floor of the cell, frantically pounding on the door. What are you doing? What are you doing? I looked at the Princess of Pingnan. I'm just returning the favor. The Prince of Pingnan gritted his teeth. You slut. You're asking for death. I laughed. So what? The beggars had already pinned Pei Zhao to the ground. Pei Zhao screamed in terror. Don't come near me. Don't touch me. Get away. I'm the heir to the Prince of Pingnan. I'll kill you all. I spoke to the beggars in a calm voice. Be gentle with our prince. The beggars had all taken drugs beforehand, and the effects were now kicking in. They were far from gentle. Pei Zhao started by screaming and threatening, but soon began begging. Spare me. Please. Spare me. The Prince of Pingnan also roared at me. You beast. I looked at him coldly. I admit I'm a beast. But you two helped him become an even bigger beast. How many women did he rape to death? How many people did he beat to death? He was just forced by others. And you can't handle it? This is karma. As I spoke, Pei Zhao's piercing screams echoed throughout the prison cell. The Prince of Pingnan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, pointing at me but unable to speak. I turned to the prison guard and slipped him another ingot of silver. Please keep a close eye on these prisoners. A few more beggars will be arriving shortly. The jailer smiled broadly. Thank you, miss. We know what to do. We despise such scum the most. I nodded and walked out of the dungeon. Behind me were Pei Zhao's terrified and piercing screams, the tragic sobs of the Pingnan princess, and the furious and unwilling roars of the Pingnan king. Epilogue. 27 years later, the Prince of Pingnan's mansion attempted a rebellion, and the entire family was executed. The emperor showed mercy, allowing the Prince of Pingnan's heir's wife, Song Shuyue, to divorce the heir and be granted the title of county princess as consolation. In the same year, Song Shuwa left the capital and wandered the world. End.